Welcome to the Sunday Gardener, the second of two videos about spring bulbs, and this video is about what to do about last year's spring bulbs. Now, if you're like me, most of us, when the bulbs are finished, we know that probably you should feed them and water them, but what tends to happen is that the tub gets put somewhere in the garden over the summer and left and forgotten. And that's pretty well what's happened to this tub that had spring bulbs in daffodils last year. So I'm just going to zoom in so you can see what's happening with this tub. So this is a tub of last year's spring bulbs, and as you can see, if you look closely, they're starting to grow. So I've really neglected this task because I should have dealt with them earlier. So in order to get them to flower better next year, I'm going to have to take them out of this container and replant them in some fresh compost, because this compost has all been absorbed. So it's going to be difficult because obviously they've started to grow through a bit, so they're going to need to ease them out. Well, managed it. So what I've done is I've eased it out, and this is now spent compost, which, as I've said in the earlier video, you can recycle for your new spring bulbs, but these are last year's. They're growing well, but there's probably not enough nutrient to do them justice. So what I'm going to do is try and take out as much of the old compost as I can easily scrape away. And there's been a mixture of bulbs in this, looking at the different layers. So I'm freeing up the roots, and that's shedding a bit of compost as well. And I've scraped away quite a bit of the old compost so I can replace it with new compost. So I'm going to have to try and get the planting depth right. And I've put a container here that's got new compost in it. So once you've cleared all the surplus old compost off the bulbs, the next thing will be to replant them in fresh compost in another container. Oh, they could go in the same, but the important thing is to try and get the planting depth right. Although it's less crucial in containers, it is still a good rule of thumb to get the bulbs 3 times their depth. So looking at this, bearing in mind that I've got a lot of root at the bottom and that the bulb is much higher up in the root, so you need to take that into account. I've sat it in there and I'm going to see whether I think that's 3 times the bulb size. So let's take a similar size bulb as a bit of a measure. It still looks a bit shallow to me. So I've taken some soil out, planted it deeper, but to my mind the bulbs still look too close to the surface. And this might happen with bulbs as they mature, because bear in mind, as they mature they get bigger and they spread. So the answer is not to plant it even more shallow, because there'll be hardly any soil underneath it and that's not going to work. But the answer is to plant it in a deeper container, a bigger container, and that's what we're going to do. So here's a deeper container which I've filled with the same amount of fresh compost, but you'll see that the bulbs are sitting much further down, and that's going to produce a more satisfactory result. They're already growing. We don't want them up here before we've got anywhere near December. So I'm going to cover them with fresh compost up to about the rim here, and I think we can be reasonably confident then we've got about 3 times the depth of the bulb. So if you're having problems with your spring bulbs getting them to a reasonable depth, then you can always either plant them in a larger container, or of course you can replant them in the garden if you wish, in which case you could easily split this up into 2 or 3 clumps, replant it in the garden, and then you don't have to bother with sorting out your spring bulbs each year, and that's a very good solution as well.